All right, I'd like to bring up and bring out our next remarkable panel. This is a conversation that I'm really looking forward to. Why are you here? How are you here? How are we able to do what we do? We have wonderful, phenomenal support from a number of organizations, companies, individuals, donors, foundations, and you're going to meet three now who walk the walk in sustainability, as I mentioned, talk the talk in their storytelling and their commitment to that, and are very proud to be partners with us, and they're going to talk about that. So Sven Lindblad, can I ask you to come up? And can I also call out Moira Mcdonald and Cynthia Williams? Wherever you would like. So let me introduce everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's start with Cynthia. Cynthia, thanks so much for being here. You're the global director for the Ford Motor Company.
Yes.
Ford Motor Company, right? She leads Ford's efforts to achieve carbon neutrality by
2050.
2050. Electric mobility, which you're still committed to. We'll talk about that. And carbon reduction. You're a member of the Michigan Governor's Council on Climate Solutions, so you're working at the state and policy level too. Meet Moira Mcdonald, please. Moira is, she's the Environment Program Director with the Walton Family Foundation, and really is an incredible leader in this space. Moira will talk about this, but they support environmental journalism in a host of different ways. For the last 11 years, she's led the Mississippi River and coastal initiatives, more than 20 years of experience in wetlands and freshwater conservation. She managed the Mississippi River and Great Lakes programs, the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, has done just amazing things and is a wonderful human being, so we're just delighted to have her. And Sven Lindblad is a great friend of Planet Forward for, I think we figured out we're in, what, the 8th year now of this, something like that, where Lindblad Expeditions has been providing the StoryFest prize for our students who make it to StoryFest, and we're going to learn about that a little bit later, and Sven is going to be up on stage along with his colleague Amy Bergquist as we announce and hand out those prizes. All of you, as I said, are with organizations that are first and foremost committed to sustainability in one form or another. So let's explore that first. Cynthia, can you talk a little bit more? This is a very weird time to be having this conversation because we had a national policy that was supporting the just transition, right, to electric vehicles. The Ford Motor Company made billions of dollars of investments in electric vehicles, and you've had to step back from that, change that a little bit. So what's left of that? How are you managing your commitment to sustainability with the real world that we got out there?
Well, for Ford, one of the things that we do is, we always start with our purpose, okay? So our purpose is to leave the world a better place than what we left it. And so, and we want to make sure that we can bring consumers along the ride with us. And so we want everyone to be free to move and pursue their dreams. That's just the down. That's just what we do. And so we in these times we have to pivot and work across the aisles to see how can we bring folks together to develop standards that can be stable. Because we cannot continue to pivot with these different
ping-pong policy.
Ping-ponging back and forth. We call it snapback in my world.
Snapback.
But either way, we have to be ready. And so one of the things that we do is we work across the company. We embed sustainability in every organization. It's not a separate agenda. It's part of the equation. That is a huge must for us, and making sure that everyone is working to build a better world. And so we work together to develop plans, whether it's because we're building vehicles out to 2030 timeframe right now. That's the vehicles that we're designing. So we're past a lot of things. So this ping pong thing has to stop.
So are you still committed to electric vehicles?
Oh, absolutely. So
is there a market for it? I mean, now we have gas prices. I mean, I've seen gas prices in Washington, D.C., $6 a gallon in places.
There is, Absolutely. And so I drive a Mach-E. So it's funny. My kids, we have like a little family chat. They was like, oh, gas prices are this. So you use this phone number for this gas station, use this phone number for this gas station. I chimed in. I was like, I drive electric, so I don't need any of that. But definitely, we are definitely committed to electric vehicles. We have a Skunk Works team out in Long Beach, California, that's developing our next generation electric vehicle. We call it the Ford Universal EV platform. That's a huge part of our strategy. Again, our goal is to be carbon neutral no later than 2050. And with this new, the electric vehicles are definitely part of that portfolio. And so one of the things that we're looking at now is like we work with our customers to understand where they're at, what they need, and so we're developing a portfolio of vehicles.
And you're trying to develop new vehicles that have a lower price point, $30,000 or so, that are
Absolutely.
affordable and more competitive, doesn't need a federal tax incentive.
But it would help. It still helps get, even more people in the vehicles. So the goal is to develop that. The Skunk Works team is developing a mid-sized pickup truck that'll be $30,000.
So the other thing Ford has, which I think is interesting, and then we'll move to the next, but is part of your sustainability walk that you walk is you're also trying to move increasingly to renewable energy that you purchase for your plants. You're trying to bring your water use down. So it's a much broader sense of sustainability company-wide. Could you just explain that a little bit?
The carbon neutrality goal is to become carbon neutral across our vehicles, our operations, and our supply chain. So we're also helping our suppliers come along the way with us. And so I'll give you a few examples of some of the things that we're doing. So in our operations, and this is a sneak peek into our sustainability report that we have coming out later this month. But since 2017, we have saved, in terms of greenhouse gases, we've reduced over 50%. It's like 53% we've reduced. And just to put that in terms of what that really means, that's powering about 450 homes per year.
450 homes or
450,000 homes per year. And then in 2019, since 2019, we've reduced our water usage quite a bit as well, and that we've reduced it, and I just put it in storytelling for you. So we've reduced it enough to supply about a small town, about 10,000 people, similar to Tacoma in Maryland. So it could supply 10,000 homes for about 3.5 years. And so we're doing a lot, and we continue to do more and more. In terms of waste from our operations, we've reduced waste in terms of just in 2025 alone, we've reduced waste that's equivalent to, you saw some of the pictures that were shown earlier today. So just consider about 138,000 of those elephants that you saw earlier today. So we've diverted enough waste that's equivalent to about 138,000 of those, about 800 and some odd thousand pounds of waste.
Wow, okay.
Amazing.
That's good. I think it's really interesting, too, to point out, and this is some of the storytelling we do, how we frame a story, that these sound like they're very good things for the cause of sustainability. They're also good for business because in many of these cases, you save money.
Exactly.
And so it makes bottom line sense. Moira Mcdonald.
Yes.
The Walton Family,
Sesno.
the Walton Family Foundation. Explain to people who this is and the commitment, because you lead the environment program, what that means and entails.
Sure. So I work for the Walton Family Foundation. This is the family that was very successful in the company Walmart, but this is their family foundation. So it's kind of like working for the Ford Foundation or the Rockefeller Foundation. It's a private family foundation, and it's been around since the 1980s. It got big in the aughts, and the family has been, since that time, committed to environmental conservation. They are a water family. They grew up with their experiences around family and togetherness time being focused on canoeing or kayaking or experiencing the outdoors. And so they have sought for this last 20 years to really make a huge commitment to protecting water resources. So we focus on healthy rivers and healthy oceans. our new strategy, we were upstairs a couple weeks ago talking about that, but it's focused on how we can advance nature-based solutions, because what we really think is that when we are taking better care of nature, we're also taking better care of ourselves. And so our work is aimed at thinking about how we can use those decades of science research, some of which we heard about in the panel before, that tell us that restoring wetlands and floodplains and forests and other nature-based solutions actually can be better ways for us to manage water, that it's better to restore a wetland or a floodplain than to build a flood wall, that it also protects our water quality, it gives us biodiversity. And so our goal is to figure out what gets in the way. Why can't we advance that strategy when we know that there's more benefits, that it's often cheaper and more durable to do it that way? Why can't we put that on a level playing field? So that's the work that we're doing in this strategy.
You're also doing tremendous work and a lot of funding in environmental journalism and storytelling.
I figured you'd ask about that.
Yes. Well, and we are very pleased and proud, and I actually do want to shout out that part of your funding supports the Indigenous Correspondent Program.
Yeah, totally.
It supports the water stories that Planet Forward students do across the country, and that's great. But you are funding reporters and newsrooms and things that are getting out there to many, many people.
So what I would say is that we know, as a river and ocean funder, a water funder, that water issues are incredibly popular. That when you poll environmental issues, 80% of people say clean, fresh water is incredibly important to me. And people do not understand why those are being degraded. And so funding environmental journalism is critical to that. So we've been funding that. We fund it at the local level, we fund it at the national level, we fund NPR and the AP and PBS, and we fund a regional outlet or enterprise in the Mississippi River. We call it the Ag and Water Desk, and it funds regional papers all over. It puts reporters on the ground, but it also helps journalism students at universities to get real experiences and be able to do more and better reporting. And then we fund Planet Forward because we know that our future success depends on being able to help people understand and translate that love for water to what they can do in their communities, and then how they can activate decision makers around that. So we see environmental journalism as critical to all of that. Can I say one more thing?
Please.
And one of the things that doing Planet Forward and working with Frank and all that has helped us to try to understand is how we're going to influence, how we're going to pivot to not only fund these important journalism institutions that have been here forever, like NPR and PBS, but also to try to figure out how to tell stories in new and fresh ways with influencers. And we've had some great opportunities to work with some of the Planet Forward students and to share their stories internally at Walton and with our board. And that's been really inspiring for us to figure out what's next.
And let me say one thing that I think is very important for the room to know. And we have these conversations very directly with anybody who funds this project. The funding does not connect to the editorial work. They don't tell us what we report. They don't edit our stories. There is something of a firewall between
that's what we say, and that's true for all our funding. All our environmental journalism funding we have that firewall. Yeah.
Sven, one of the things that I've so enjoyed in getting to know you and Lindblad is this really interesting conversation that you have about sustainable tourism and what that is and what that means. So that's your commitment to that. So maybe you can talk about that.
I will. But first of all, I just want to say that your conversation with Ellen was one of the most inspiring conversations I've heard in a very, very long time. That was just awesome. And your enthusiasm is off the charts. So, I love that. So, sustainable tourism. I grew up as a naturalist. I sort of formed my thoughts when I was living in East Africa in the 1970s, hanging around with elephants. So I spent a year and a half photographing elephants before I came back to the United States and eventually started the company that I now have called Lindblad Expeditions. But I've always felt just deeply that we have to rethink or we have to reimagine our relationship with with the environment, with nature, with natural systems. And in that I wasn't really trained for much else, I decided to go into the travel business. My father was actually in it, a pioneer of what we now call, he's really the father of what I would call ecotourism at the moment. And I felt that the idea of being able to bring people and expose them to the world, culture, nature, history, created this sort of army of people that then began possibly to think differently about how we deal with our challenges. And at the same time, it's enormous fun. So it's been a very, very satisfying life to be able to make these journeys possible for people. And at the same time, I'm aware of the fact that when you use the word sustainable, there are lots of challenges with any interaction with wild places, with culture, that you have to be cognizant of, because you never go to these places without having some form of effect. But I've always looked at life as sort of like a scale. You have positive, you have negative, and as long as the positive significantly outweighs the negative, feel comfortable about that. And I think that we're not going to do a great job of dealing with our challenges unless we have more knowledge, and not just knowledge, but we develop more of a connection with the world at large, right? And so travel obviously is a great opportunity. And it was actually funny when I was in the green room, Ellen said hello to me and she said, "I went on your ship to Antarctica last year and it was the best vacation of my life." So if someone like Ellen can say that, that's pretty awesome, given the fact that she hangs out with elephants and pandas and astronauts and rocks and
that cool place in Panama, that island in Panama.
Right? And Barro, Colorado, which is a wonderful place. So
You've done interesting things with plastics and fuel and food on your ships to try to be more sustainable, recognizing that there's still a footprint. And maybe briefly you could tell people what's about it.
Way back we said, look, plastic, single-use plastic, that's just a bad thing. Let's just eliminate it from our lives. And it's not the easiest thing to do, but you can do it, right? You can find, if you want to serve fish, you can find fish that are not endangered. There are certain fish that you can source that way. If you just start thinking about what is your relationship to all of these resources, and to try and migrate them into a more sustainable place, you can do it. It's hard work, but you can do it. And I think our guests who travel with us all over the world appreciate that. But what's important is that I've come to the conclusion that if we're going to really, really solve the challenges that we have to deal with, we're going to have a mind shift. And we're going to have to develop a very different kind of relationship with the planet than we currently have. We sort of live apart from nature. And when you think about it, what we need to do is be a part of nature, not be apart from nature. And it gives us so much. And it's framed, you as journalists, you can do a lot in terms of reframing, right? Because right now, when we talk about the environment, people think about negatives, cost, sacrifice, things like that, right? We don't talk enough about health, wealth, spiritual value. I mean, nature's out there and it gives us all this essentially for free. All we have to do is not screw it up.
Is that all?
And we're doing a really good job of screwing it up. And we're not doing a good job of developing that different relationship.
Cynthia, I see you nodding your head over there, and that's interesting because, the Ford Motor Company is a gigantic multinational corporation.
Absolutely. But, storytelling is so key. It's so key that you have to boil the data down to something that your grandmother understands, and bringing that person in to make sure that they are part of the solution. That's the way you have to do it. And so it's up to you guys to go out and find someone and tell their story. And tell their story in a way that resonates and that makes them want to help and make that environment better.
How are you and how is Ford trying to tell the sustainability story now? Sustainability is not a word that's out at least not in the zeitgeist coming from this town, right? At all.
Right.
And there are a lot of other things that people are worried about right now. to be quite honest about it.
Well, again, we're bringing folks together just to, first of all, stabilize the regulatory environment. That is a must. We must do that. So we're working with non-government organizations to do that. We're working with governments, and we're working with just any partners, utility partners, because some of these electric vehicles that are coming online now can actually bring residual income to customers that buy them. And so just teaching that story is some of the things that we love to do. One of the things that I love to do is to work with young children. So I work with, I adopted a middle school, and so I take engineers out to that middle school. We build Legos, electric vehicle Legos with those students, and teach them how to program them, and so that they can move. They name them, they do all types of things. But again, that's teaching them early the benefits that electric vehicles can bring and the benefits to the environment. So working with children, working with adults, you got to go back and forth, but starting early, I think, is key.
We talk a lot in storytelling about framing, how you frame a story, right? There's the doom and gloom frame, there's the innovation frame. There are different kinds of frames that you have. So the frame when the Mach-E got rolled out was basically drive this cool electric car and save the planet.
Absolutely.
But what's always struck me is I kind of think there's a better framing, which is you're never going to go to a gas station. You're never going to need to change the oil. You don't have an
Totally.
exhaust system to worry about.
that.
In the District of
I have an
Columbia,
electric
I have an
car.
electric vehicle. I never have to get it inspected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So how is Ford framing now the messaging and the conversation, the story around electric vehicles?
All of the things that you said, that total cost of ownership is key. How much are you going to save over the lifetime of that vehicle? And so you make, and the incentives, those things help bring the initial cost down. But again, you never have to change your oil. You never have to stop at a gas station. So come on. So join the club. Join the club, and it's better for the environment. So that we work with our teams to hone that message, to get those key bites out there to bring folks in. And what's key, I work with a lot of organizations as well. What we say is key is getting butts in seats, get them to drive the vehicle, because my electric vehicle is the most powerful vehicle that I've ever driven. I love the performance. I step on the gas, you go. And so,
How many in the room have driven an electric vehicle? A fair number. Okay, a fair number. For those of you who haven't, right? It's like
exactly.
People don't know. They think
0 to
it's like the hybrid.
get a free
rather
Ford
than
when you
they,
leave the
They
room.
don't understand.
Absolutely.
Let the record show. Sorry, Cynthia, I don't own a Ford electric vehicle.
We gotta
My neighbor
get you on
does,
one.
but
We definitely have to get you in one.
So, are you doing a new ad campaign or anything around?
We're doing ad campaigns.
So you're still advertising EVs.
Absolutely, and I'm on the CalSTART board, the VLOS board, and I work with another organization called EV Noor, and so we're working with them to do different ads, bringing real life customer stories like these 30-second ads, and you'll see a lot of those coming out over the next year. But we're continue to hone the message and get busting the myths about EVs, and that's another thing we're trying to do.
Maura, storytelling. Why Walton Family Foundation is so invested in it. And maybe you can talk about how you view the importance of environmental storytelling that we continue to do to reach the public.
Yeah, I mean, I think that unfortunately, our field, like environmental advocacy, it has, we've struggled because we've let our story about nature and connection and things that people can relate to, we just haven't spent enough time cultivating that story. We've let our issues become partisan and become something that flips back and forth and is subject to that whipsaw. And I think that centering nature and the experience that people have in nature, and centering storytelling and the people, the people, I think is a really powerful way for us to help folks remember that water is really important, nature is really important, and that it doesn't have to be a partisan issue. Making it, again, an individual issue we can bring, historically, conservation and environment were bipartisan issues. Teddy Roosevelt started the conservation movement, and I think we see our work and why we're invested in storytelling is trying to get back to that, trying to help people connect back to the outdoors in a way where they remember that we don't have to make this so gosh darn controversial.
Exactly.
Your lips to God's ears, as we say, right? So let me ask all of you as we wrap here to give a very quick piece of advice, 30 seconds or so, to the people in the audience, especially the young people in the audience. Many are here because they want to be storytellers, formal storytellers, filmmakers, photographers, documentary makers, journalists. Everybody's here because they care about the planet and they care about the people. Everybody's here because they're interested in communication, and we all communicate now, whether it's just an Instagram post or something more formal. So to wrap it up, let's just kind of go down. And what's a piece of advice you would give to folks in the audience? Sven, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I mean, particularly as a young person, I think the most valuable relationship that we as human beings can have is with nature. And if we cultivate that relationship, we are basically ensuring future generations a really vibrant possibility. But if we damage it further, we are really going to have we're leaving our kids and our grandkids with a real deficit. And you have the opportunity to think about how do you make people care? And that's a real challenge, but you have to think in terms of how do you translate what you feel so that people can understand that they have a stake in this and that it's critical. And that's it.
I think that people in our field think that they have to be experts to be able to talk about this, and that is just not true. Some of the most compelling storytelling around natural resources, water, rivers, the environment is done by people who have these experiences. So I think all of you have that opportunity to have these experiences and to share them for others who can't touch and feel that. So don't think you have to be an expert. Go out and do it.
Absolutely. And keep the message simple. Say, relate it back to something that somebody understands and bring them into that conversation. Help them to, change their thinking. And if they're part of the solution, again, they will want to help fix it.
So I want to thank all of you. So what, in addition to the support that you've given us to make this all possible, you've been great partners. So we've taken students out to Dearborn, Michigan. They've seen the Ford EV-150 facility out there, talked to engineers, done stories out of that. We've worked very directly and closely with Walton Family Foundation, as I mentioned. Our Indigenous Student Correspondent Program is a direct beneficiary of that. And of course, our students have gone out and will go out with Lindblad. We've been to Alaska, to the Galapagos, to Iceland, and this summer to the Arctic, Iceland and Greenland, whatever flag they're flying, which I think will still be the Danish flag. Yeah. So on that note, thank you.
Greenlandic flag.
Thank you all very, very much.